What if I told you that behind the glittering wealth of one of history's greatest cities lies a legacy of unimaginable suffering? Welcome to Potosí, where fortunes were made and lives were broken. The year is 1548, and you find yourself in the bustling heart of Potosí, a city teeming with life and opportunity. But beneath this veneer of prosperity, a dark secret simmers. You might have come for the fortune, but you won't leave the same. For Potosí will take something from you. Whether it's your soul or your very life force, it doesn't matter. This is a tale of greed, misery, and the cost of empire. A story of how one of history's greatest cities became synonymous with heartbreak, and by the end, you'll understand why they call Potosí the city that money can't buy. Potosí is located high in the Andes Mountains in what is now Bolivia, founded by Spanish conquistadors in the 16th century. The city's history is intrinsically linked to the Cerro Rico de Potosí, the rich silver mine that brought both untold riches and immeasurable suffering. As you explore the cobblestone streets, the grand cathedrals, and the stately mansions of the elite, you'll see the stark contrast between the opulence of the few and the desperate poverty of the many. The silver extracted from Potosí fueled the coffers of Spain and contributed significantly to the global trade of the time. In fact, it was said that at its peak, the mine produced half of all the silver in the world. But for the indigenous population forced to work the mines, life was a misery beyond imagination. The workforce, mostly made up of enslaved indigenous people, endured horrific working conditions, brutal treatment, and a high mortality rate. The air was thick with the smell of sweat, dust, and death. As you stand before the gaping maw of the silver mines, you can almost hear the anguished cries of the miners echoing through the tunnels. The Spanish crown and the encomenderos, the local lords who controlled the mines, grew incredibly wealthy. However, the vast majority of the profits left the mines with nothing but a few scraps for themselves. The silver extracted here did not bring them wealth, but rather condemned them to a life of destitution. Let me tell you about Casimiro de Cabañas, an ordinary man caught in extraordinary circumstances. He was born into a world of silver and shadows. The year is 1789, and you are walking the streets of Madrid, Spain. The city is alive with activity, and the air is filled with the scent of oranges, roasting chestnuts, and fresh bread. Before you stands the royal palace of Madrid, home to the Spanish monarchy. Inside these opulent walls, King Charles III sits on his throne, adorned in jewels and finery. He is a symbol of power and privilege. You see, the king has just received a gift, a magnificent silver chalice crafted from the very heart of the Cerro Rico de Potosí. Little does he know that this chalice is not just a symbol of wealth, but a vessel of tragedy. It is a physical manifestation of the misery and suffering that fueled his kingdom's coffers. Back in Potosí, Casimiro works tirelessly in the silver mines, enduring backbreaking labor and the constant threat of death. His life is a cycle of toil and despair as he and his fellow workers delve deep into the bowels of the earth. They extract the precious metal that will make kings rich, all while enduring unimaginable hardships. Casimiro dreams of a better life, hoping for a future free from the shackles of the mines. But for now, he must continue his work, fueling the engine of empire that keeps him trapped in a life of servitude. As you stand before the majestic facade of the Royal Palace of Madrid, you can't help but wonder about the stories behind the treasures within. The silver chalice sits on the king's table, a silent testament to the suffering it represents. And somewhere deep in the mines of Potosí, Casimiro continues his endless toil, unaware of the luxurious life his labor is helping to create. Now let's fast forward to 2023. You are standing in the Plaza 10 de Noviembre in Potosí, Bolivia, surrounded by the hustle and bustle of daily life. In front of you is the imposing structure of the Casa de la Moneda, also known as the Mint. This historic building once played a vital role in the production and distribution of silver coins, but today, its grandeur is juxtaposed by the harsh realities of those who lived and worked here during colonial times. Inside these very walls, enslaved indigenous people were put to work, their hands and bodies bearing the brunt of the labor required to turn raw silver into gleaming coins. Their sweat and suffering went into every piece of currency stamped with the seal of the Spanish Empire. As you walk through the halls of the Mint, you can almost feel the weight of their despair hanging heavy in the air. The Mint at Potosí was not just a place of commerce, but a symbol of the wealth extraction that shaped the city's history. It represented the insatiable greed of the colonial powers and the tragic toll it took on the indigenous population. Every coin minted here was a reminder of the human cost of empire. In 2023, Bolivia is still dealing with the repercussions of this colonial economic system. The country faces challenges such as income inequality, limited economic opportunities, and a legacy of exploitation that continues to resonate. Potosí's history serves as a stark reminder of the dark side of wealth creation and the importance of acknowledging and addressing the injustices of the past. By exploring sites like the Mint, we can learn from history and work towards a more equitable future. Welcome to the Church of San Francisco, a place of worship and reflection in the heart of Potosí. But as you step inside, you realize this church is not merely a house of God. It is a mausoleum of memories. The year is 1600, and you find yourself in the midst of a religious ceremony. The air is heavy with incense, and the sound of chanting fills the sanctuary. But there's a somber undertone to the proceedings. The Spanish friar officiating the Mass is haunted by the horrors he witnesses daily in Potosí. He sees the broken bodies and empty souls of those who have been ravaged by the harsh realities of life in the city of silver. Yet he continues to preach the teachings of love and compassion, hoping to offer some solace in a world of misery. The church becomes a place where the pain and suffering of the indigenous population are acknowledged, even if the wider society remains indifferent. But the story doesn't end there. The Potosí silver also found its way into the ornate altars and embellishments of churches across Europe. Cathedrals like the Seville Cathedral and the Florence Cathedral were adorned with silver from these mines, becoming symbols of both faith and exploitation. In the 21st century, the Church of San Francisco stands as a powerful symbol of remembrance. It is a place where the legacy of Potosí's silver is intertwined with faith, sorrow, and the resilience of the human spirit. The friar's sermons echo through the centuries, reminding us of the need for empathy and justice in a world still grappling with the consequences of colonialism. Welcome to the Compañía de Jesús, a Jesuit church that dominates the skyline of Potosí. Its grandeur is a stark reminder of the power and influence of the church during the colonial era. But as you approach, you sense there's more to this church than meets the eye. During the colonial period, the Compañía de Jesús, also known as the Society of Jesus, played a significant role in shaping the spiritual and cultural landscape of Potosí. The church was a center of religious authority, education, and social control, reflecting the values and ambitions of the Spanish colonial empire. The order's presence in Potosí was a defining feature of the city's religious and cultural life. Their educational institutions taught indigenous youth a European curriculum, often at the expense of their native languages and customs. This cultural imposition aimed to convert and integrate the indigenous population into the colonial system. However, the Jesuits' influence extended beyond religious instruction. They actively participated in the encomienda system, which allowed them to exploit the labor of indigenous communities in the silver mines. This involvement in mining activities raised questions about the church's role in perpetuating the very system of oppression it was supposed to challenge. As you stand before the imposing facade of the Compañía de Jesús in present-day Bolivia, the church's dual legacy is evident. It stands as a symbol of the Catholic Church, its historical influence in the region, and a reminder of the complex role it played in shaping the cultural and economic landscape of colonial Potosí. And finally, welcome to the Cerro Rico de Potosí, the legendary silver mountain that made Potosí rich. Standing before you is a colossal incline covered in mounds of discarded rock. It seems almost mythical in appearance, like something out of legend. In the early 16th century, when the conquistadors first discovered the silver deposits here, they believed they had found the mythical mountain of gold and silver described in the legends of El Dorado. The name Potosí is derived from the Quechua language, meaning mountain of silver. From humble beginnings, the mine rapidly expanded, delving deeper and deeper into the earth, giving rise to a labyrinth of tunnels that stretched for miles. As you venture deeper into the mine, you'll encounter the harsh reality of the working conditions. The air is thick with the smell of dust and decay, and the flickering lamplight reveals the dark, dank walls of the tunnels. The miners who worked here were subjected to backbreaking labor and dangerous conditions. The Cerro Rico de Potosí was not just a source of wealth, but a place of misery and sacrifice. The indigenous workers endured appalling conditions as they delved deep into the heart of the mountain in search of silver. The wealth generated here had a profound impact on the course of history, shaping the fortunes of empires and leaving an indelible mark on the world economy. The true story of Potosí's silver is one of both opulence and tragedy, a tale of greed, exploitation, and the human cost of empire. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the hidden histories of Potosí. I hope you've gained a deeper understanding of the city's legacy and the lasting impact of the silver that made it famous. Remember, every shining piece of wealth has a story, And sometimes those stories are best left buried. Until next time, keep exploring and stay curious.